Guitar Teacher Hangout. My name is David Hart, and we're going to discuss some very interesting topics today regarding our teaching and business and whatever we come up with. So what I'll do is I'll start with you, Michael. Have you got a topic that you want to cover today?
Not in particular, just one thought I had yesterday regarding teachers, because I started my new teacher started with me yesterday, just observing. And I'm sort of thinking ahead, how much experience would you give a teacher before you start to hand over your intros? I just thought that sort of for down the track. Yeah.
Hand over your intros, you mean having someone do the intros?
Yeah, yeah.
I would probably wait a while just to make sure they're confident and comfortable with the groups. What I want is to get someone to take over the intros. What I'd be looking for is a teacher who really believes in the groups and is confident in the groups. So when they're doing the intro, because really the intros is as much about obviously introducing the student to learning guitar, but it's also about selling them on the group concept and making sure they go across. And one of the big things in anything, and I know you guys are very aware of this, is belief. If you don't believe in something, it's very hard to be convincing. In fact, if you don't believe in it, you're really lying to people. And I think the first place to start is you've got to believe in it first. And then once you can see that teacher believes in the group teaching and the value of it, then when they go to do the intros, they're going to be very convincing in their delivery. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
I guess the question is, how do you know when you hit that point? It's hard to say. Some people are very good at pretending, but I think you can tell. I think there's a point there where you realise that they really do believe in the group idea.
No, it gives me something tangible to look out for, to see, Yeah, that's good.
Cool. All right, so Yoko, did you have a question or topic you wanted to raise?
Maybe in terms of with the the employees that many of them are they are like studying at uni.
Yep.
And so they have the the job is more like a job that they have for while they're studying at uni. So then once they graduate from uni, then then they go on to whatever else they want to do.
Sorry, you cut out a bit there at the beginning. Are we talking about teachers you're hiring here?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Good. Okay.
So
cool. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. And so when you have someone how can you ensure that they want to stay after they graduate from university?
Chris Gatto might be able to answer this question. Have 4 kids and get a house mortgage. That's how you'll keep them in the job. Once they're married with 4 kids and a house mortgage, you won't be losing them in a hurry. Isn't that right, Chris?
Absolutely. I missed the beginning of the question, though.
He was asking about how can you keep an employee teacher with you so they don't suddenly leave after 6 months. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of a joke there, but there's a bit of reality in that as well. And people stay in jobs often because they need the money. They don't have a choice. They're kind of stuck there. But that's not a good reason to keep someone. It's not the way to keep someone. The way you want to keep someone is by them. It's the same as keeping students, really. It's them seeing the benefits. And I think for employees, for there to be benefits, they need to see a path to where they want to go. So, I think of a guitar teacher or a uni student who comes in and works for you. Where do they want to go with their career? What is it that they want? And if their career is not heading in a direction that you can help them with, then you're probably going to lose them at some point because they're thinking of going somewhere else. You're really just a stepping stone and an income. And that's okay for some positions, and if you're not you know, if you're not needing to keep them for, or you're not trying to create an employee that's going to be like almost like a partner, then it can work out okay for short term. But if you're looking for someone who's going to stick around, then really what you want is to be able to work with them and build a career for them, whatever that happens to be. So I would think, you know, if you could bring someone in who you think could be eventually a partner with you, that's always a good thing. You don't necessarily have to raise it in the beginning, but if you're thinking in that way, is this person a potential partner for me in the future? That's how you're going to help build the path. Because if we use an example, right, and I think that we can all relate to this for those of you who've employed teachers before, is that often you'll get musicians who they don't have enough gigs going on. They're not getting enough income. They don't really want to start their own guitar teaching business. They don't really want to go to the trouble of doing any of the marketing or any of the back end. So they look for the easy option, and that's to go and work for someone else. But it's not really what they want to do. They're not teaching because they're passionate about teaching, or this is the thing for them. What they're doing is they need the money. It's pretty well the bottom line, and they play guitar and they think, well, here's an opportunity for me to earn some money playing guitar. So you've got to kind of try and filter those guys out, or at least get them to be honest with you about where they're going, and then you can talk about it. So, for example, if you've got an employee who, and this often happens, is they say, hey, I'm going to go to uni, I'm going to study music, and I ask the question, that's great, what are you going to do with that? Where are you going to go with that? And sometimes they're not even studying music, they're doing a business degree, or they're doing whatever. And so my question always is, well, what are you going to do with that? Where are you going to go with it? And a lot of the time they do a degree, like say a business degree, because they want to get a job. And the reason they want to get a job is simply to earn money and create a kind of secure future. So most people are led into this, and if you go into Kiyosaki, he talks a lot about this, where most people are chasing the job and the security. That's what they're after. But in fact, the job is the most insecure option of all, and that's simply because, and again, anyone who's got a job can relate to this, especially anyone who's got a job where they earn good money and they really depend on that money. So if you've got a job, let's say you're earning $150,000, $200,000 a year in a job, and you're sort of, you're up to the hilt in repayments on homes and cars and taking care of things, and you lose that job, you're in big trouble. You're basically out of the game. You'll be on the street in no time. And that's where a lot of people end up, and that's why they feel stressed, because they don't like the job, but they need the money, and they can't see an easy option out. So people who go for the job innocently start with that kind of idea in mind, not realizing that they're building themselves a prison, a contract that'll become stressful. And whereas if you build a business and you go right from, then sure, you can feel trapped in a business. Sometimes it can be stressful and all the rest of it, but you ultimately have control of it. You can decide, do I want to teach this many students? You might get to 50 students and go, this is enough. I'm just going to sit on 50 students for now. You want to earn more? Then you got to go out and get more students and expand your business. But each stage of your business is in your control. Everybody who works for you, every student that you have, every policy that you have, everything is in your control. You don't have to go and consult someone. You might have to convince students. You might become dependent on the money. That happens as well, where you can't afford to lose students because you're too dependent on the income. So you build yourself a trap, but it's you doing it. It's not a boss, and it's not putting all your eggs in one basket. Often things like, and I did these tests a number of times, where I looked at it. I do the numbers first, and I go, what if I raise the fees by 10% across all my students? So I raise it by 10%. That's going to increase my profit, not by 10%, but by 30%, because as you know, you've got the expenses. So the income that you get, let's say you're turning over $100,000 a year, but you have $50,000 in expenses, then you end up with $50,000. That's your profit. So if you've got $50,000 profit and you raise your fees by 10%, so you go from 100,000, raise it another 10,000, so you now have 110,000. Now you've just raised your profit by 20%, if half is profit. And a lot of time people don't even have that much profit. So that's why the percentage is higher. So by raising that, and I thought, how many students will I lose by raising the fees by 10%? And I worked that out. Worst case scenario, I'll lose 20% of my students, etc. But what I found is nearly every time I lost hardly any students. And the students I lost were generally the ones I was happy to lose. They weren't that committed. The ones who were really happy and committed were fine with it. Some of them, they didn't like the increase, but they understood. They saw the value in the lesson, so they were happy to pay a little bit extra. So this is how you can manipulate your own business and do things within your business to get it how you want. But coming back to the idea of the employee and how to keep them on board, it's really communication. Everything comes down to communication and saying, what do you want? Where do you want to go? And if you're leaving, and you might have someone in that situation, and I've been there, we've had an employee who says, look, I'm going to quit, for whatever reason. My question is, what are you going to quit for? Where are you going? What are you going to do? And that's not that I'd always try and reel them in, but if they're a good employee and I really want to keep them, then I'll at least sort of say, okay, let's talk about it. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then they'll often say, well, I want to go to uni so I can get a degree and then I can secure my future. But you don't think you have a future here, or you don't think you're secure here? That's when we get to that question, oh, I'm not sure. And then they open up sometimes and say, well, yeah, I understand now, I do have a secure future here, and okay, well, I'll rethink my plans. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Is there anything else, Joachim, that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so the one teacher I have in Paddington, he's studying uni for the next 2 years. But and then asked me yesterday, so what do you want to do after? And he wanted to work in high school, because then he'd be working during the day and finish at when his child finished school. And then also when they have holidays, he have 3 more holidays than I think anyone else.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's attractive. It's attractive for them, right?
Yeah.
So you now understand what you're up against. So then it's up to you to build a case against that. So one of the things is that and like I said, I understand that scenario where they want to do that. But one of the things about school teaching is that it's a bit of a myth what they think they're in for. Most school teachers don't. I've known a lot of school teachers over the years, because school teachers are very big at getting their kids extra education. So a lot of the parents that I've worked with over the years have been school teachers. And plus, I went out with a girl who was a school teacher for a couple of years, and I got to see her go from finishing her last year of uni to doing her first year in school teaching. After her first year of school, she quit. She didn't want to do it anymore. And the reason is that she was up till like 11 o'clock at night, nearly every night, marking school, exams, preparing for the next day. They expect a lot, especially in Australia. I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Australia, they expect a lot from school teachers, and they have these full-on curriculums now, and especially when they first come out of uni, it usually takes them about 5, maybe 10 years. Those who last, which is statistically only about 60% last, the other 40% end up pulling out within the first 10 years. So if they do last, it usually takes them that period, maybe 10 years. It's back to that 10,000 hour rule, the whole thing, to get a real hold on the curriculum and to know what they're doing, and then not to be having to work those excessive hours. But when you first come out of uni and you go into teaching, you're going to be up quite late most nights, because you're going to be in the company. What you do is you get an appointment at a school, and then you're in the company of other school teachers who are usually many more years your senior. So you feel like you really have to work hard to keep up, and that's how the girl that I was with some years ago felt. And she was, and I'll make this point, she topped her university. She was, she got to choose the school that she wanted to go to in the state, which is quite rare. You have to be in the top 1% to be able to do that. Because what happens in most cases is you get sent out to the country. She was able to pick a school in the city, and a lot of those schools, there's a 10-year wait to get into those schools, and a very, very long wait. So Another downside is that you'll probably end up having to go to the country somewhere to teach, unless you're an exceptional teacher. And they do make an exception for males as well, because there are more females, a lot more females in teaching. So when a male comes through, they tend to give males more choices. So my thing would be to kind of stack an argument against the benefits of school teaching, and not to fall for the idea that it's you finish at 3 o'clock, go home, and there's nothing else to do. I can assure you they have a lot of work to do. When that bell rings. Yes, Michael.
I was just going to say, I've got something that add to that which might help, Joachim. My best friend back in Sydney, he is a high school teacher at Nepean Performing Creative Arts, and he's been there for a while. He's been teaching for about 10 years, and he would have what, as a musician, you would consider to be the best high school teaching job you could get, because they've given him this massive budget to put together a performing arts venue. He spends all his time doing rock band programs, and he's doing all this great stuff. But he's depressed. Half the time I speak to him, he hates his job because he's got to do these extra long hours. He's got to do extra stuff the school wants him to do for the music side of it, setting up tech and PA systems and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And he just doesn't get the respect from his. He doesn't have that loyalty from his boss, the principal. He always feels like he's being worked and worked and worked and not appreciated at all. That was knowing him was one of the reasons why I decided not to do going to the high schools, because and then on top of that, he's getting a pretty good wage for a teacher. He's getting a pretty decent wage because he's doing all this extra stuff. He does HSC marking, and but he also has to go and get another job doing sound at a venue a couple of nights a week on top of his teaching job to help pay for his bills. And he doesn't even have any kids. So, right. That's just one example anyway.
Yeah, and potentially within your business, if you can sort of give whoever it is the idea that you're flexible, that you will work out a plan here. So maybe not now, not in the short term, but maybe in 2 or 3 years he'll be more in a management position where he can go home and spend time with his kids. He'll be looking after 2 or 3 of your schools for you. This is possible. You don't promise anything like that, but you just say, look, together we can do this, and I'm here to build a business, and I'm here also to understand that you've got a life. And worst case scenario, he might be teaching full on 3 days a week, doing 3 full shifts, and then he can have 4 days off. So there's that flexibility. They lose all that flexibility. Basically, they're not. The education department doesn't. They're not going to negotiate with you. It's just simply, this is what we expect of you, plus more. So I think what he probably needs to do is just, or even you need to do, is research it a bit more, find a little bit more about what the downside is of school teaching, and then bring up the benefits on that, and say, and what is it that you want to do? You want to spend more time with your family. I understand that, but how much more time do you want to spend with your family? You're still going to have to work, no matter what you do. It's when do you want to spend time with your family? Do you want to go on holidays with your family twice a year? Is that what it's all about? Let's get down to what it's all about, and then find out how we can make this work for you. Because especially if you value that guy as an employee. So.
Yeah. So I only asked him. I didn't have any sort of told him why I asked him. I just sort of have conversation what do you plan doing after when you when you finish your studies.
Yeah.
And so maybe I'm just wondering how would you sort of start that conversation?
Well, I would just keep talking to him about it, because it doesn't sound like it's urgent. He's going to be around for a little while, but if you can sort of get to the point of what he wants, what he's really seeking, and then show him how he can get it with you plus more, that's really what it's about, and that's what anyone wants. People see he's just looking at the upside of the school teaching. He hasn't considered the downside. and he may have considered some of the downside, but he probably is not fully aware of the downside. And you know, things, you know yourself. There's in business, there's an upside and there's downside. Business is not all great stuff, but when people sell it to you, often it's sold as all the upside, or in your mind, when people start out in business, they think, it's going to be all fun and roses, and I'm going to be on an island with my laptop just cruising. But we know it's not just that. We know the benefits of it, but we also know the downside of it, and everything has a downside and an upside. So what you really need to do is really build a case. That's all, and keep building that case, and keep thinking about it with your employees, because your employees are like your students. In fact, they're more valuable in this sense, because if you lose a teacher, you often lose a lot of students with them. If you lose a student, you lose a student. But a teacher could take 20 students with them. So that's where you need to really put a lot of emphasis on the sales process. That's why salespeople do the best in business. Selling is the #1 skill that you need, and selling is not just about, it's not what it sounds, that it's just about all, talking people into your way of doing things. Selling is about presenting a case for things, and get for people to see the benefits of making that choice. And it's often self-serving, of course, but as long as you're giving them what they want in the deal, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you selling your side, and you can be honest about that. When I used to be in sales, like purely sales and retail sales years ago, often the biggest compliment people would say to me is, geez, you're a good salesperson. They'd say to me, whoa, you're a good salesperson. I came in here to spend $100 and I'm walking out with $5,000 worth of stuff. You're a good salesman. And that's cool. I didn't take offense to that. I took it as a compliment, and they meant it as a compliment. But they knew they'd been sold, but they also knew that they were happy with their purchase. If they weren't, they wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have put their credit card on the table. They were happy walking out with whatever they walked out with. And I was selling, just to give you an idea, I was selling, back in those early days, a few different things, but at one point I was selling stereo systems, like, speakers, and they'd come in to buy, a little all-in-one thing for a couple $100, and I ended up taking that to the top-end stuff. But I was in sound. I was doing audio engineering. I loved great sound. There's nothing better than, a really good sound system. And so I would take them out there and say, look, just look at this, look what you can get. And I'd start off and they'd go from the couple $100, and I'd take them up to, maybe $600 or $700. Just for a few extra $100, you can get so much better sound. And they'd go, oh, wow, this is cool. And then I would sort of say, well, if you want to spend a little bit more, you can get this amp, or you can get these speakers. And if you want to go right up, and people would sort of end up somewhere in the middle. But the idea was that I wasn't just saying, okay, you want the $300 stereo all in one, bang, okay, let's go. Because I hated them. I thought that they were cheap and nasty, and they just didn't sound very good. So I wanted them to have great sound. And so it's really about where you're coming from in what you're doing. If you know that you can offer your employees a better career path, then you really want to let them know. You really want to sell it. It's like, why would you go there when you can be here? You have so much freedom. You can do so much more here, rather than being in that school system where everybody has to follow the rules, and nobody gets any say. And your maximum you're going to earn is about $40,000 or $50,000 a year, etc., etc. Okay, so yeah. That just to end there, one other thing there is, of course, the salary. School teachers don't earn a lot of money. There's really a limit. And if he stays with you, and imagine if he stays with you for, say, 5 years, he will know the business so well, and then maybe he can buy a location off you, or he can set up his own. But he will have that business training as well as the teaching. It's not just the teaching, it's the business training, which is where he's going to really, in the end, buy his freedom. Okay? And that's where it comes from. He's not going to get it in the school system. He's going to get it locked into the school system, and he'll either hate it and leave and end up back where he is, starting all over again, or he will get locked into it for years and not really go beyond a certain wage point. So. Cool. All right. Chris, what would you like to talk about today?
Okay. Very deep subject.
Yep.
T-shirts and a new intermediate student I have. Should I just tell you the topics real quick, or go into the questions?
Yeah, just fire away. What we want to do is just start
Okay.
with one thing. We'll cover that, and then we'll do something else. Yeah.
My first intermediate student I've ever had just started, and you might remember this, David, from our emails, right? He's 12 years old. He's been playing for a couple of years, on and off. I've only had beginners, so this is a new one to me. He holds the pick in a very strange way. His first and second fingers are underneath the pick, and his thumb is on top. So instead of 2 fingers holding the pick, he's actually got 3 fingers holding the pick. And
Yeah.
I sort of corrected him on it, but he keeps going back to it. Another thing is he is really reluctant to have the classical pose. He's playing like the old-fashioned way. Actually, not the old-fashioned way. You know what I mean? The regular way of having the guitar in his right lap. So should I be insistent on these types of things, or let them slide, being that he's been playing for a couple of years? Or it depends on his personality. What are your thoughts on that?
You're going to strike this with intermediate students. You're going to get my thing is like the picking technique. If we start with that first, picking technique that he's using, it can work. That there are plenty of strange and weird ways to hold a pick, and there's some excellent pickers. You go back to Wes Montgomery. He had a very weird way of playing guitar, but it worked. He's an exceptional guitar player, as we know. So I wouldn't be, if he, I think at an intermediate level, I think at a beginner level, let's show them how to do it in the best way possible. I think at his level, it's really about just showing him what we do and what we recommend, and then also pointing out the downside of that way of picking. Obviously, if he's holding, a pick with 2 fingers, he's only got 2 fingers left. So when it comes to other techniques where he has those fingers available, he's one short, and it's a very valuable finger to use, right? So I would really point that out to him.
I don't like it at all the way he does it, but he just keeps going back to it. Right.
Yeah.
He takes away the ability to finger pick it with the other fingers as well. Right.
Yeah. And when I went to I learned for 2 years by myself, self-taught from about 14 to 16, and then I went to teacher, and it was like starting again. He really said to me, "This is how it's done." And to be honest, I was uncompromising. I just said it's my way or no way, and I didn't budge on that, simply because I didn't want to have them hanging around for a year and not making progress, and me eventually getting to the point where it's the picking, it's that picking that's not working, and or it's just sitting position. I just would say to them, look, it's just the way that we do it here, and you may not like, you may like it, you may not like it. I don't know, but all I can tell you is this is the way it's done here, and that was my approach. I was uncompromising on it. So.
And with the sitting position, I definitely understand the benefits from a beginner standpoint, because the neck is more closer to eye level. Everything is more comfortable, so I totally understand that. So maybe I should just lay down the letter of the law in a way, I'm a little bit of a softie, so I tend to let things slide sometimes,
Yeah. Well, there's more to it than just the technique itself. It's about leadership. It's about
good point.
Setting the fact that if you're here, and I'm going to bring this story up because it's very, very interesting, because it's very relevant to what I've been through or what my father's been through in the last week. He was pretty well at death's door. I think he went out a few times and came back. And when I first went down there, he was literally at that point where he couldn't move. He was basically as good as paralyzed, and but he could talk. And so he started talking to us. But then he started to get better. So he's actually now sitting up. He's in the last couple of days, and I think it's because family came and we kind of rallied, and he's really come a long way in a couple of days. But it was really interesting because the surgeon came in, and now this surgeon is obviously very, very good at what he does. The kind of surgery that he does is very demanding. The actual operation took 10 hours, so they were in surgery for 10 hours, which is a massive operation. And when the surgeon walked in, he had a team of about 6 people there around him, and he was directing each and every one of them to do certain things, and he was totally in command. There was no like, oh, is it okay if you do this for me, or what do you think? He just didn't. He was in charge, and everybody was just there to support him and follow exactly what he was asking. And this is the way a guy like that has to operate, because he's dealing with people's lives here, and he has to take full charge of the situation and full responsibility. So that way he can't blame one of his assistants. He can't turn around and say, you got it wrong. It's like he's the one in charge of making each and every decision. So that the lesson, and this is my dad, just sort of give you a bit of background on my dad. My dad's a diver, and he was what they call a dive master. And he was actually at one point, and he sort of brought up the story, but at one point he was sent to the islands, which is sort of north of Australia, where the divers were dying a lot. They were going down too deep, and they didn't know how to use the oxygen tanks properly, and so yeah, they were dying, and it was all funded by a Chinese company. And anyway, they paid my dad quite a lot of money to go and to fix this problem. And he just, basically what he did there is he went there and he wrote a set of rules and he laid it down. He stayed there for about a month and he watched them go through all the processes. And he just said there was no negotiation. You either do it my way or I walk out. And these are guys who are, islanders and whatever, and big guys, and my dad's not a big guy, and he just literally, told them how it's done. But the point that he was making was that he said how the nurses and the more junior doctors seemed to be kind of fumbling around and asking for his opinion. Do you want this, or what do you think, or would you like us to do this or do that? And he made the point, not to them, just to us, and he pretty drugged out as he's saying it too, I'll tell you. But he was making the point that he didn't want them giving him decisions. He just wanted them, they're the professionals, just tell me what to do and when to do it, and just do whatever you need to do to keep me alive. Don't ask for my opinion. And I think there was a very powerful message in that. It's for us, within what we do. It's not that we want to be dictators and not listen to what people are saying, not listen to your students and how they feel and how they think. But if there's a certain way of doing things, even if it's not necessarily 100% right, if that's the way that you do things, you really should stick to your guns and follow it through. And people will respect that. My 2 best teachers were like that. They never asked for my opinion. They just told me how to do it. And I realized that they're the 2 teachers who have stuck in my memory pretty well, my whole life. And I had about 30-something different guitar teachers, and none of them stacked up to this one particular teacher who was I knew that he really cared. I knew he really believed in me. It wasn't that he wasn't arrogant or anything like that. He was a really nice guy. So still is a very nice guy. I still in contact with him every now and again. But he just was very, this is how you do it, Dave. And this is what I want you to do. And he put me in a rock school and he gave me the exact songs to learn. He didn't ask for my opinion at any point. But that didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do. I could still do what I wanted to do. But while I was under his guidance in his classes and his rock schools, he was in charge and he got things done. And he took my playing at that point to levels I just didn't think. I was playing AC/DC songs and basic rock songs, and he got me playing Yes and Toto and Police songs and all this sort of stuff that at that time I thought was way out of my league, but he showed me how to do it, and he believed in me and got me to do it. So I think that if you kind of stepping back and you're tiptoeing around and you're worried about your students dropping out and all that sort of thing, then sometimes you just got to step up and say, look, stick with me, stick with the plan, and we'll get you there. That's what they want, because he's come to you for a reason. That's the bottom line. He's come to you, especially as an intermediate student. He wants help, and maybe he feels a bit stuck. And sometimes there's a great relief in knowing, hey, if I sit this way and I hold the pick this way, sure, I'm going to have to go back a few steps, 2 steps back, but I'm going to be a much better player, and that wall that I've been hitting, or that ceiling that I've been hitting, I'm now going to be able to break through by changing my technique. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, well, I'll go to Monty, and then I'll come back around and we can talk about the T-shirts. Monty, have you got a question or a topic that you wanted to chat about?
Well, I was going through the S3 checklist with one of my students. He's actually the furthest in G4 since I've been doing it for a year.
Yeah.
And we came to the arpeggios where it said do it in 4/4 time and 6/8 time. So 4/4 time would just be 4 strings and then repeat, right?
Yeah.
And then, well, not necessarily 4 strings, but 4 notes. So the 6/8 arpeggio, is that you're just getting 6 notes with 4 strings? I was just wondering.
Yeah, really, any combination you like. Yeah, I've kind of left that open-ended. So, if you think of something like House of the Rising Sun, the arpeggios in 6/8. So you could take that kind of idea. If you're playing the bass note followed by the 3rd, 2nd string, there's your 3 notes, and then coming back up 1st, 2nd, 3rd string, there's your 6 notes. So that's one way of doing a 6/8 pattern. But there's really lots of different patterns you could use, as long as it's in 6/8 and they understand the concept of 6/8. That's the idea, is that they can understand that a 6/8 has where the accents fall and so forth. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just ran across that, and the first time you teach something, it is kind of weird. It's like, well, I think that's what this means.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Talk to the guys.
Yeah,
and what the guys say.
See what the guys say, and I think just pull out some examples, get some 6/8 examples out. House of the Rising Sun is the obvious one that comes up, but there are a few other good examples out there.
Like Nothing Else Matters. Da na 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 na. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Would that work?
Yep. There's a couple of there's a classic song, classic piece. I mean, Romance is not 6/8, but it does play triplets. It's a triplet piece. So.
Romance.
Yeah.
Hallelujah is a good one. Jeff Buckley.
Who?
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Jeff Buckley.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just a little question, just something I ran across. Yeah, it's been kind of a weird week for me, so I didn't have much time to think about anything to ask, but I did make it. So thanks again for changing the time.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, good. Yeah, it worked out for Chris too, because this is a good time to sort of meet in the middle for Australia and America. Okay, so I'll go back around. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll just touch on a topic here, and then I'll see if any of you guys got any more questions. The other one, the thing that's sort of coming up, and Emma and I have been talking about it a bit, is staying clear to your visions. And I think that it's one of the things that can get lost. You can get lost in the details about where you're going and what your business is. And so I think it's really clear to keep that 100 group students really clear in your mind all the time. And that way, when you're working your business, what you're doing is you're thinking about how everything affects that 100 number. What are you doing? And this is where, I'm experiencing, which I've mentioned in the last couple of meetings, is that, I hit this kind of 50 members, and then I realized that, I need to work on some of the systems, because the amount of questions and the amount of support and things that are needed throughout the network are not quite in place yet. So to go to 100, I would just be doubling my problems, or I just don't have the time and the energy to be able to cope with 100 right now. And So what happens is as you're developing your business, you're still looking at the 100, but sometimes you have to put the brakes on and go, okay, well, I'm sitting here at 50 students, but I'm feeling already a bit overwhelmed. What do I need to do? So when you get to that point where you feel a bit overwhelmed, or you're starting to lose the vision, or you feel yourself wanting to kind of back down, which is what happens. Just understand that what happens to most businesses, and I think this is a really good explanation, and that is that most business owners is they go to this, they sort of grow, they're very excited about growing in the early stages, and they grow, but then they get to this point where they start to feel a bit overwhelmed, but they're already on this kind of growth thing where the momentum of growth, it keeps going. So what they do is they go over and above, 10%, 20% of what they can handle, to where they're literally working long hours, but they've found themselves working in their business and no longer on their business because they're so busy trying to cater for the number of clients they've got and the number of things that need to be done that they never actually get through their to-do list to get on to working on the business. And it's really important that you always have that time. Let's just say as a minimum 20% of your time is working on your business. If you can have more, it's better, but as a minimum. But most businesses get to that point where they're working 100% in their business and 0% on their business. And then they get to the point where they're actually working at 110%, which is probably hard to sort of say how you get 110%, but just stick with me on this one. But basically what they're doing is they're overworking, they're burning themselves out. So they get to a point where the business starts to collapse, or they pull back. So they start literally rejecting customers, or getting rid of customers, or just ignoring customers. Sometimes if they've got locations, they'll close certain locations down. If with certain businesses, if they had 4 or 5 locations, I saw my mother go through. She had 3 locations, and then she ended up closing 2 of them down to end up with 1 location again because it just got too much for her. And so the idea is to see those things early, so you don't have to retract, so you don't find yourself trying to back off the amount of business you've got, but you're actually building the systems as you need them. And if we go back to Great by Choice, the book, the point that they make in that book is the steady annual growth. So there's this almost, Southwest Airlines, they basically have a philosophy of 20% growth per year. That's what they're looking at. They're just looking at 20% per year. They're not looking to do 100%, double their figures in 1 year. So the idea is that if you can look at that steady growth, and when you kind of hit your 20% mark, you might hit that in the first 3 months. Then you can kind of cruise for the rest of the year. But the idea is to get to your 20% growth, or whatever your targets are, and make sure your systems and everything's in place. It's not that you have to kind of pull yourself back to not grow a bit more, but what you want to do is make sure that everything is okay, that you're running the business at a certain speed that it can actually handle the velocity that your business is actually growing at. And this is, I would say, it's probably the number one reason people actually go broke or close a business, is because they grow too quickly and they can't handle it, and they haven't got the systems in place to cater for the business. So they end up paying too much. They get stuck where they need the income, the growth even, to sustain, and as a result, things unfortunately go down. You can even look at economies that did this. The Japanese economy is a good example. Even the American economy is an example of the Japanese economy and the American economy. They grew considerably from 1950s onwards through till about the 90s, and then the growth was just rapid. And now we've got this situation today where the growth is what's required for the economies to stay healthy. If they don't have the growth, and you see it all the time, growth in China is slowing down. It's like gone from 8% per annum to 15%, to about 7 or 8%, and it's like, wow, China's in trouble. Well, 7 or 8% growth, it's still growth, it's okay, right? But no, we need the 15%. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to build everything that we need, and we're not going to. So does that make sense? The idea of constant growth, steady growth, not to go too hard and expecting rapid growth. So. Okay, so yeah, just to finish on that, it's about having that clarity about your vision and knowing where you're going. So if you want to get to 100 group students and you want to do that, even if you want to do that in 12 months, even if you have 20 students now and you want to be at 100 in 12 months, that's fine. But make sure you have your points where you go, okay, I'm now at 30 students, let's do a check. Let's make sure we can handle this, that we've got all the systems in place that we need. All right, bang, we're good to go to 40. Let's go to 40 and let's reassess again. So keep reassessing at those points to make sure that you're in a position to handle it. Don't just keep trying to get more and more students when your systems are already under a lot of stress, because you're going to crash. Cool. All right, so Michael, did you have another question at all?
Just one thing that happened the other week when I was teaching. Just had one student in the group that mentioned that she finds it very distracting. Say if she's doing the first 3 notes of a scale, but the other students are doing the full scale because they've done it. You know, so there are slight differences between what they might be doing, and she finds it hard to hear herself, and she can't quite distinguish between everything else. So yeah, just if you had any suggestions on how you could respond to that, or get them to sort of zone in on what they're doing.
It's a confidence thing. She's probably just a bit nervous, and yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would just build her confidence. And can you hear her? Are you able to hear what she's doing?
Yeah, I can hear her. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a confidence thing. She's just probably a bit nervous, and probably, you know, it's just one of those things where you just got to build the confidence and go, look, it's sounding great. You're doing really well. Stick with it. And is she doing it? Is she making mistakes? What are you saying?
No, she's going through the couple of notes, and yeah, but sometimes she just kind of stops and looks around because she's, you know, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it is. That's probably is just a confidence thing, but
it's a confidence thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but she kind of yeah, it just goes, I can't really hear what I'm doing. You know, I said, oh, well, feel free to pick a bit louder, you know, because some of the other, you know, a lot of beginner guitarists, they pick really heavy, you know, notice that. So there's some other heavy pickers in there.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, well, I'm only a quite soft person, you know, when you do this. So, but yeah, it's just about, yeah, her getting used to that, you know.
I mean, it's hard to say, you know, without seeing her, but in a lot of cases when people say that or do it, it's very much a confidence thing. They're just looking for some reassurance from you that they're doing well.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of like, oh, you know, this is hard. I'm finding him distracted. Yeah, I know, but that's you're doing fine. You're doing really well. Keep going. Keep it up for me. Good.
She does struggle with confidence in other areas, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Joachim, have you got another question?
Maybe just around what you said with you know, sort of doing that, you're doing a check, like when you have, say, at the moment I have 90 students at the moment, so like, you know, what's the check you do? What systems do you look for to get to 100?
Okay, good question. What I want to know is where the problems are. So where you can already see that you've got there's stress on your system. So in other words, are you finding you're spending a lot of time emailing students? Are you spending a lot of time reinforcing certain policies? You know, you're chasing money. So you just got to look for where the current problems are and where you seem to be spending a lot of your time. Because if you're spending a lot of your time in a particular area, then there's a good clue right there that you don't have enough systems in place or a good system in place. You know, a common complaint that I hear when, you know, teachers get to a certain number is that they don't have enough time for you know, marketing. Let's say doing flyers. They get to this point where they're sort of saying, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do flyers. So my thing there is, well, that's okay. You don't have to, you know, if you've got enough students right now, then just don't worry about doing the flyers for a while. It won't matter. But don't be, you know, don't be surprised if your student numbers drop. But be prepared for that. Don't expect to stay on 90 students when you completely stop your marketing, because you've still got that attrition rate. You're still going to lose a certain number of students in the next few months. But if you take 3 months off from your marketing flow, even switch your marketing off altogether and not spend any Facebook ads or do anything, that's fine. It's not a problem as long as you have a plan for letting the numbers drop. Because the position you're in now, if you say you've got 90 students, then that's based on, you've probably got about, I'm not saying in your case, I'm just making a random guess here, but you've probably got about 60 solid students who are not going to go anywhere anytime soon, and then you've probably got about 30 students who will slowly drift off over the next 6 months. They'll drop off. So if you don't do any marketing for 6 months, you'll probably end up with about 60 students. That's where it'll end up. So you've got to be prepared for that. You've got to go, well, if I switch off the marketing, I'll get my time back. I'll have more time to do things and work out the systems I need. But I have to be prepared for the numbers to drop a little bit. And so, yeah. So you're just looking, the clue always is, where are you spending your time that's not working on the business? In other words, when you're working in the business, where are you spending most of your time? And there's the clue for a system. Okay.
Great.
Cool. Okay, so Chris, you did mention something about the T-shirts.
Yes, I'm getting T-shirts made with a local printer. So just a couple of quick questions. A, do you just hand them out to your students? B, as far as getting them printed, I mean, obviously Michael's wearing a T-shirt, so that's your standard shirt. That's what I would use, right? Yep. Are there any variables you don't mind throwing in there, like your local school, phone number on the back, maybe something like that, or just any ideas about that? Because I downloaded a lot of the artwork from the G4 online site, but yep. I just wanted to get a feel for what you recommend and what you don't recommend.
I haven't really thought about it much. The design that I like most, obviously, is the Michael's design. I think
right.
It looks great,
and that's what I'm going to use too.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're running with. On a T-shirt, some people might be able to grab a photo and get your details, but they will still find the G-Force. If they go to the G4 Guitar Method site, up the top there it says locations, so they can still get to you there. You might, at the back, you might want to add in your area because, and you guys can test it, but if you search any G4 guitar, whatever area you're in, your location will come up. The websites all rank pretty well #1 in that case, so it should be pretty easy to find. I think it's easier these days just to say to people, go to Google and search G4 guitar,
right,
artist, and you'll find me. Rather than trying to remember, our website address or anything like that. Even, you don't even really need your phone number on there. Google is just so easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So keep it simple then.
Keep it very simple. Yeah, keep it very simple, because the majority of what your T-shirt's going to do is create awareness in the area. Once people see the brand name, and I do it myself, I see like a brand of something or a name. Sometimes someone will just mention it and they'll say to me, "Oh, do you want me to give you the phone number?" I said, "I don't need the phone number. Just tell me the name of the business, and I can look it up." Right. So, yeah, we're kind of in a different world. There's still people living in the old world, the pre-internet world, but pre-Google world. But today, as long as people know the name of your business, even if people just search for G4 Guitar that live in your area with nothing else, they're probably going to find your website straight away. It's probably going to be there at the top. Just search G4 Guitar from your location, and it'll pretty well be there.
Okay. And now, do you also hand? What do you have in the back, Michael?
So yeah.
I'll turn around. See if I can get it in the shot. Can you see that?
Oh, there we go. Okay, good. Yeah, I'll do something like that then. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could even put under that, where he's got the logo under it. You could put, Hardyston, if you like. Just put the suburb under that.
Right. Exactly. Something like that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you guys have you guys handed it out to your students? Hey, have a T-shirt. Hey, have a T-shirt, and just give it to them. Sure, why not, right?
Should be a reward for finishing the checklist.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe a practice log.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Little competition. I don't know.
Yeah, because they could almost wear them like jerseys, you know, like where you could have when they finish a junior 1 or a junior 2, senior 1, whatever, that they get that shirt for that.
Right.
Because, you know, they don't cost that much, and rather than just a certificate, having a shirt that they can wear could be something a little bit special for them.
They're wearing the shirt that the teacher's wearing. How cool is that? You know?
Yeah, but having a special one with their level, so it could be, you know what I mean, like junior 1, junior 2.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Little ranking.
G4
Army.
Exactly. Build the G4 Army.
Like the KISS Army. Yeah.
KISS Army.
Level 1. You know how they used to be color coded. I don't know if are they still color coded? Maybe not. But yeah, level 1 shirt is a green shirt. Level 2 shirt is a blue shirt. So they know exactly, you know, what level they've done.
Yeah, exactly. And just like, you know, when you do karate or something like that, you know, you have the colored belts.
That's what I was
thinking. Yeah.
Green belt, white belt.
I think if we could sort of work out something along those lines, and it doesn't have to be complicated, just something very simple where, you know, they literally get a shirt that's only for that level, and they get awarded it when they, and you can even take a photo of them when they're in the shirt and post it on your Facebook page or whatever, just saying congratulations. So,
that'd be a lot of shirts, though.
Could be a lot of shirts. They could end up with a whole cupboard of G4 shirts.
Yeah.
What else do you need in life? You got a G4 shirt. You're covered. If you get all 7 of the junior levels, then you've got one for each day of the week. So you're all good.
Cool.
But you obviously when you get to the next level, you're not going to wear the old shirt, right? Because you're proud to be on the next level. The old shirt gets chucked, or I don't know what they'll do with the old shirt, but anyway, it's a good idea. And if you get people wearing the shirt, that's free publicity for you.
Exactly.
For all of us. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, it's a good idea. So, Monty, have you got any final questions?
Not really. I mean, I've had a lot of dropouts lately, for different reasons.
Yep.
And,
does it feel?
I've had a lot of new students recently too, so maybe that's I think I had like 5 to 10 new students recently, and then a lot of dropouts. So if you get a lot of students, you're going to get more dropouts, I guess.
Yeah. What's your longest student that you've had?
Like before G4 and everything.
Just everything, yeah.
I had this one kid. He was 8, and now he's 14. And he's also in my student band. So we got a little band. They play Metallica, and they can do Crazy Train and Enter Sandman. He's a total shredder. He actually plays circles around me. He sits home, plays his arpeggios, and more than all the songs and guitar chords and everything combined that I do, he must just play arpeggios. So he's really good. Yeah.
He's got right into the arpeggios, and fantastic.
So I mean, let's see, he was 8. So I guess that's 6 years. It's pretty long.
Yep, that's great.
And I've had some other students that long too.
Yep. So you've got a few around that sort of, and that's. I guess, is there a difference? Something you notice that's different with those students to the students who drop out?
Well, they get into the routine, I guess, and it's more of a way of life than just something that they've tried and okay, I failed. They give up. Some people give up easy, I guess.
Yeah.
And others
don't. I sort of bring it back to what I found was the difference between them identifying themselves as learning guitar and being a guitarist. Once they identify with themselves as a guitarist, and this is part of their identity, and because I went through that, where once it becomes part of your identity, it almost feels like an obligation. I'm a guitarist, so of course I play and practice guitar, and I go to guitar lessons. Of course that's what I do. So, yeah. So I think getting students to that mindset of that they're a guitarist, not just learning guitar, is I think once you can get them to that point. And so, see, reason I'm saying this, Monty, is that if you can take your success stories and apply what it is, because even though you may not be aware of it, there's something going on there with those students, and it's not just them. Sometimes it's circumstances, sometimes it's just the way that you connect with them. But if you can take whatever it is and you can bring it across to the others, you're not going to convince everybody to be like them, but there are going to be people who are kind of on that borderline where they drop out, but if they had just a little bit more of the kind of the whatever, the X factor, the mojo, they would have crossed over to the being I'm a guitarist side. So the G4 T-shirt might do it. This might be what they need. They just get that shirt
I should have waved
like
that
Superman.
like a bull, and like you could be a rock star.
That's it. Put this on, and you'll transform. You'll get superpowers. Yeah. G4 man. All right.
That's a good idea. We should have like a mascot, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the G4 logo kind of looks like a Superman thing, doesn't it? So we could have
Pickman.
Pickman.
Put a little face on there.
Pickman. Yeah. Somehow he doesn't sound as powerful as Superman, but yeah.
We'll have to think about this.
Yeah.
But a cute little mascot, I don't know. That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, we've got the one for the kids, the Jerry and Grace. You know Jerry and Grace.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need a more sort of grown up version. And in this world of equality, we need a man and a woman. We need a superwoman and a Superman. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that. It's on our list of things to think about.
Yes. The ever
you got me on Pickman, Monty.
Pickman. The mighty Pickman.
I think that's going to stick. The Adventures of Mighty Pickman.
Don't break your fingernails. Don't rip your skin off. Use a pick. Hold it correctly. Oh, by the way, I hold a pick with 2 fingers like your one student does.
That's right. Do you really?
Yeah, because it helps me balance my pick and make it, flat against the string.
Well, you need to change that.
I guess so. I guess I'm doing it wrong. I'm going to take lessons off of you.
Maybe
but if I want to use those other fingers, I will switch to the index. But normally, I'll use 2 fingers.
Yeah, if you can switch, there are players who switch. And I've seen it. I think Eddie switches a lot, between fingers.
Eddie Van Halen uses his middle finger and his thumb, and his index sometimes, and then he can do the finger tapping.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what mostly he does. And I think occasionally he'll switch, when he wants to use the other fingers. But yeah, I know that he holds it mostly like that. That's how he generally holds his pick. Yeah. So he can tap with his first finger. So he's got that, and then tapping with that.
And I've always tapped with my middle finger. So I wouldn't have to mess with the pick. I'd hold it with an index, and then it looks like I'm giving you the finger.
Yes, that happens when you play chords sometimes.
Yeah, the minor bar chords.
Yeah. With the students, you notice with the students is like that finger's sticking up a little bit too much.
That finger. Sometimes I'll say literally the bird finger.
The bird finger, yes.
Chuckle sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Young kids don't.
So Monty, you say you actually use both the first and second fingers for the most part?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it helps me balance my pick, because if your pick's at an angle, you get that weird scrape sound every time you pick. You know what I mean?
And if you ever need to finger pick or just kind of play on the E string or the B string, you'll just make the switch? Or you don't really do
I'll
that
just
anyway.
switch
when
to
you
my
pick
I'll switch to my index finger and thumb, and then I
it.
can
Okay.
do it like a little bit of what do you call it?
Right.
Mark Knopfler style, you know.
You right. Exactly.
The
right.
pick and the what do you call that? Finger style or chicken picking?
That's right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
The basic, the bottom line here really, Chris, is that consistency. And so if you see a problem with his picking, then you need to correct the problem. But if you don't see a problem, then you don't need to correct it. So even if he's holding with 2 fingers and it's working, that's fine. But if you think it's not working for some reason, then you need to address that. So.
Right. Right.
So, because I'll play solo jazz as well, and for me, often the pick will go. I'll just don't have a pick it, but I've got the coin there, and the pick goes there, right? So when I'm doing that, so it just sits in between my fingers, and then I bring it back in, so as I need it. So it goes between. So it doesn't matter if you're holding 2 fingers, as long as when you need, if you're going to tapping, you can go like that. If you need the fingers for whatever, then yeah, you can do that. So it's just about whether you can switch and to do the things you want to do. That's really what it comes down to.
Right. Right.
But if you see his picking style is restricting his picking in some way, or he's not getting a result, he's struggling, that's when you need to correct him to get a better result. If you look at some of the best pickers, really what it comes down to is the amount of energy that they use. They use very little energy to get the pick moving across the string. They're not doing this sort of thing, right? They're using almost like their thumb, and there's very little movement. People pick from different points, and a lot of guys pick from here, but some guys pick from here, from that thumb joint, where they're moving it there, and other guys pick from the whole arm, right? They're doing this. And
right.
Some of them get speed, depending on in all points, but it comes from that consistency. And I think one of the worst things that I did was I'd see one person do something and then I'd try and do their style, and then I'd see someone else do it and then I'd try and do their style. But that was the worst thing to do, because I was, changing all the time. Stick to whatever it is. Now, like I said, if it's working for him, then stick with it. But if it's not working, that's when you've got to correct him. But don't correct him if it's working for him. Just correct whatever, like get him sort of, using less energy, maybe hitting with the point of the pick more, getting a little bit more attack or whatever it is, but you don't necessarily have to change his 2 fingers unless you're going to switch to a different style of guitar playing. So.
Okay, great.
Just look at the way Pickman does it.
That's it.
Pickman, our new hero.
There should be an illustration diagram. Pickman holds it this way.
Sorry guys, I've got to end up here because I've got a meeting here with Joachim now. But I'll see you guys next week. Same time.
All right, good hangout.
Good.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
See you.
Pickman signing off.
Pickman, he's gone.